So I talk to a lot of law firms and business owners, and there are some things that are in your control, and then there are some things that are not in your control. And so what I try to help business owners focus on is what is within your control. Like your spending habits are in your control. The pricing that you set is in your control, and how you manage your cash flow, those types of things are in your control. My doctor put me on medical leave when I was 13 years old, and it completely changed my perspective on how I think about my health and what I can do to protect it and to preserve it. And I've taken that same philosophy into how we work with our clients, because I think not enough people are thinking about the financial health of their business. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do to help really protect it and preserve it. But to give you a little bit of context on like why my doctor put me on medical leave at age, because I was actually age 13, and I was a pretty typical, I could say healthy kid for age 13. And this was, over 20 something years ago. And when I went in for my physical, I had grown up playing, sports from the age of 5. So I had done physicals every single year, and it was usually a routine thing. You go in, you do the physical, the doctor says you're cleared to play. But when I was 13, the doctor came back and said, hey, I can't clear you to play sports. Like, I actually have to put you on a medical leave, and I'm recommending that you don't do any physical sports. And so I'm asking, like, okay, why? What's going on? And he said, I'm concerned about your heart. And I would say, a long story short, his concern was that I could be out on the field, either playing soccer or playing football, and I could pass out and possibly die on the field. And so when I went home and I told my parents, and now as an adult, I couldn't imagine what my parents were going through when I explained to them, like, hey, here's what the doctor said. Because then we went back to the doctor, we went through all these appointments, and the issue that the doctor noticed is that I had a significantly irregular heartbeat. And his concern was that if you're playing sports, you might put too much stress on your heart. And if your heart stops in the middle of you playing, like, it might not be enough time to save your life or to preserve you. And so for an entire year, I set out of sports because I asked the doctor, like, okay, what can we do? Is there any type of treatment? Is there any type of plan? And one of the things that he told me is he said that some of it may be, your health habits, the things that you do. But also part of it is your body may grow out of it. And so for an entire year, my mother watched my health like a hawk. And I completely appreciated that, because the things that it taught me, the habits that it put in place, allowed me to really put myself in a position to say, okay, all right, some of this I can control. Like, I can control like what I eat. I can control like some of my dietary habits. Now, I will say at the age of 13, you don't have a ton of stress, but let's say if I got that diagnosis when I was an adult, I would probably have to control my stress level. Now at age 13, I didn't have a lot of stress. So that wasn't necessarily a factor that I had to think a lot about, but it was something like, stress level, how much you're sleeping, what you're eating, moderate physical activity to making sure that you're doing the things that you can. But then also there was a part of it that was outside of my control is, hey, as your body's developing, you're going through puberty, maybe your body will outgrow it. And I think that's very, very similar to what people go through when it comes down to their business. So I talk to a lot of law firms and business owners, and there are some things that are in your control, and then there are some things that are not in your control. And so what I try to help business owners focus on is what is within your control. Like your spending habits are in your control. The pricing that you set is in your control, and how you manage your cash flow, those types of things are in your control. Now, things that aren't in your control, like how the economy is doing, or how the national, global, or even how your local economy is doing, is like which customers say yes and which customers say no. Like that's not in your control. But one of the things you have to do is to develop a strategy around, hey, what am I going to do about my spending? And so here's what I recommend for a lot of business owners when we do a financial health assessment, where we go in and we really look at every aspect of the business and we say, okay, all right, let's look at the finances. Like, are you making money? Are you losing money? Like, where are you? Are you deficient when it comes down to profitability? And then we start to really break it down, like, where is your revenue coming from? Like, what is really leading you to make money? Because a lot of people don't really look at that, and you should consider that, because if we look at that and we say, hey, this thing that you're doing over here actually generates the most money, then the question is, are you putting your resources behind the thing that is actually working in your business? And as I said, we talk to a lot of law firm owners, and we often find is that the thing that makes them the most money sometimes is not the thing that they're investing in. Like, they're doing marketing strategies to build up clientele in some area that isn't even really bringing in the money. And so you want to make sure that you focus, like, okay, are we focusing our attention in the right places? And one of those ways you do that is looking at what is bringing you in money. And once you look at that, we can kind of break it down and we can say, okay, all right, now we kind of know what's bringing you in money. We can really evaluate your expenses. Have you staffed that area of your business properly? Have you provided the right level of, marketing support? And then we also look at, things like your technology spend. Like, are you spending money to help you become more proficient and better at the areas that are critical to your future success? Because how you spend your money will determine, how much resources are going to be available to support your high growth area or to support your more stable areas. Now, to really dig into that a bit more is we probably need to do a profit margin assessment, where we look at, okay, all right, what's bringing you in money? How does your spending align to that? And let's just see what area of your business is generating and leading to the greatest level of profitability. Because as you kind of break that down, we can kind of see, like, all right, these are healthy habits. You are focused on the thing that really brings you in money, and you've aligned your expenses to help maximize the areas that are the most profitable. And when you're doing different things like that, you're setting yourself up for the most success. And then we start to look at things like, your debt and your financing, because we understand that, yes, it does take some investment to, grow your business, or it takes some investment to help your business be in the right position. And so some of the things we want to look at is, okay, where is the money coming from for you to invest in your business? Because if you're carrying too much debt, that's going to weigh you down. That's going to make your business way too heavy, and you're not going to be able to stay financially healthy because your business is carrying way too much debt weight, and it's really slowing you down. So we want to look and see, okay, all right, what's the balances on your credit card? If we look at some of the short-term loans that you have or some of the long-term loans, like, how are you actually financing your business? And if you're carrying too much debt, maybe we need to come up with a strategy or a plan to say, hey, how do we start to structure your business in a way to help you start to lose some of this debt? Because this debt is going to stop you from being as successful as you can be in the future. So we need to come up with a strategy to help you adjust and help you move that off of your business so your business can have greater potential to thrive. Now, I am not a fan of I'm not the type of person who say, hey, you should never use debt. What I would say is you should use it wisely, and you should use it strategically. And so when we look at it, we need to ask ourselves, are we using debt strategically to grow your business, or are we just using it because, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind type of thing for some people? Because there are many people that I've known that have been using a credit card, and yes, they want the points or whatever the benefits they're getting or the perks that they're getting from the credit card, but they forget that, hey, we have to build in a plan to pay that credit card down and pay that credit card off so that we can put your business in a better situation. Now, The other thing that we need to do is we also need to look at your ability to handle the things that are coming down the road, which means we need to forecast a little bit. We need to say, okay, how strong is your business? So if we wanted to hire more people, would your business be able to afford to make that type of decision in the future? And that's where we start to do things like forecasting and kind of modeling to say, hey, if you had to hire 2 more people, could your business afford it? Based on the prices that you charge, based on your cost structure, are you in a position to be able to do that? Like recently, I sat down with a law firm owner that was, interviewing some great candidates. And they were like, hey, these are the right people that I need to really take my law firm to the next level. And I said, that is great. And we know that it is not easy to find the great, ideal candidate. So as we kind of talked through that, I said, all right, now let's look at the numbers and let's really stress test this out to see, okay, all right, if you hired these people, what does that do to your cost? And then what does your revenue need to look like for this to still make sense? And what we did is we started to plan out that scenario to say, hey, if you hired these people, here's how much it's going to add in cost. And then here's what you need to be able to do on the revenue side. Now, the question is, do we have enough potential customers in the pipeline, or do we have a marketing strategy to be able to ramp up our revenue to this level for this whole scenario to make sense? And as we started to think through that, what this allowed us to do is it allowed us to not just look at what has happened in the past, but it allowed us to start looking forward. So then she can start planning and they can start really thinking about, hey, if you're going to take your business to the next level, what do you need to be doing today to make sure that you're prepared for it? And I think the same thing happens that I learned when it came down to my health, because I will say after a year of being on a medical suspension, I was finally able to be cleared to be able to play sports again. And a lot of the things that I had done and the habits that I created during that medical suspension were the things that set me up to where I never had an issue in 4 years of playing sports. I had never had an issue, and I was able to make it successfully through the next 4 years of playing sports without having a medical issue either on the field, in the game, or in the practice, or even in the training sessions. And a lot of that came into the way that I prepared myself for the things that I could control, and also making sure that, hey, I was aware of how to read the signs. And so one of the things that I really want business owners to think about is when you consider your financial health, do you understand what are the things that you can control? What are the things that are important, but they're outside of your control? So you can't really manipulate those things or adjust those things. But how can you do the things you can control to put your business in the best possible situation so that when the time comes for you to make certain decisions, you're in a position to do so? Now, if you're a business owner and you're trying to figure that out for your business, you're like, hey, Terrell, I have no idea where to start. I think you can click on the link below. We have tons of videos that can kind of help you talk about some of those key areas, whether it's analyzing your revenue, or whether it is analyzing your gross profit and your profit margins and your ROIs. And if you feel like, hey, I still need some help, I need someone to really help me go through it. That's why we do the financial health assessments for business owners, where we go through kind of these areas of really assessing what does your financial health look like, and are you positioned to be able to make the decisions that you need to make so that you can build and have the type of business that you really want. Hey, thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Law Firm and Finance Show, where we give you great content that helps you build a more successful law firm. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on all platforms and follow us for more content.